Good day, Lionhearts. It's your old pal Jordan the Lion. How are you all doing today? Oh, I hope you said well. I'm doing well, although we might get a little bit wet today. I've been outside walking jaw and it's been on again, off again raining, but I really want to go do a vlog today, so I think I'm just going to do it anyway. Now I was surprised to find out that one of the biggest stars in the early days of television and in Vegas history once had a home in the San Fernando Valley when everyone else was living in Beverly Hills, and I could never really understand why. And I found out last night why, and I thought, you know, this might be a fun vlog. Now this is someone who, for 20 years, their income didn't drop below $5 million as an entertainer. They were one of the most charismatic people that you could see, and they were someone that people just instantly fell in love with, though this person was leading a double life most of their life. Today we're gonna go to the Sherman Oaks home of Liberace. Daze with Jordan the Lion, it begins now. And all that clanging around was you with your treats, wasn't it? You got some fish treats. Go ahead and enjoy them. I am surprised this is right off the freeway. I mean, we're making a right and it's like right here. That's nuts. I wonder if you had to deal with stuff like this all the time. So to give you a little bit of a background on how Liberace came to be Liberace, he was a child prodigy piano player. He had the musical gift even when he was a child. His parents had divorced early on, so his father wasn't in his life at all, and he was extremely close with his mother and his brother George. So you would see them a lot throughout his life. He would mention them a lot, and it was actually George who really got him started. You see, he was wanting to be a classical pianist, and like I said, had the gift. But George told him you can make money playing ragtime. So he started playing in bars, doing ragtime to earn a little bit of money, and then eventually went off to New York City and was performing in hotels and just had this very charismatic way of performing, would make facial expressions while he was performing, and people just loved to watch him. And he eventually was invited to come out to perform in hotels and casinos in Las Vegas. Las Vegas was booming with all the gambling and everything, and once again, he was someone that once they put him in there performing, he was kind of a family act because he was clean and he was likable, and even if the men wanted to gamble, their wives could go see Liberace perform. So in 1945, that's when he came to Vegas and started performing on a regular basis, and was discovered by who would become his manager, Sidney Heller. Sidney saw him performing one night and was just completely captivated by him and said, you know, I have to sign this guy. And television was a new medium at the time, and that's exactly where he saw that Liberace could shine. And so he signed Liberace. They put him on television, and as you can imagine, if you know anything about him, how charismatic he was, it helped with all the ads and the commercials that they would put in there. He was really good at selling products. He would make facial expressions to the camera, and he would talk to the camera as though he was talking to his audience. So his audience really would become attracted to Liberace because, and I've seen it in various comments on different Liberace vlogs I've done, where people say, my grandmother loved him so much that she used to get dressed up to watch his show, or she always had a standing date with Liberace. He just really connected with people in a way on television, in a new medium that just was kind of unbelievable. So in 1953, Liberace's manager brought him out to the San Fernando Valley after a trip to Beverly Hills, and I'll tell you why. So Sidney Heller brought Liberace out to the Sherman Oaks area, and one of the things you have to understand about Liberace is that his appeal wasn't just how good of a pianist and performer he was, because he could do contemporary music, pop music, classical music. It was that he had this incredible ability to connect with his audience. And so Sidney brought him out and started showing him first homes in Beverly Hills, and then brought him out here and said, what do you notice that's different about the homes here? And Liberace said, well, homes in Beverly Hills are bigger. And he said, well, other than that, all of a sudden Liberace noticed, well, the homes in the valley, they all had TV antennas, and the ones in Beverly Hills didn't. So this was really his crowd. This was really, his fans were the people that lived here. And so he decided to build a home here in 1953. I'm showing you all of his neighbors' homes, so you can kind of get an idea of what his neighborhood would have been like. Many of these are the same homes from that time period, you can tell. So this corner lot right up here was Liberace's. Now what I find fascinating about it is that at this time he would have been probably the highest paid entertainer on television, and yet there's no security gates or anything like that. He had this home built in 1953. It's a 4-bedroom house with 4 bathrooms, and this is the famous house that had in the back a piano-shaped pool. At the time, the only person that had one was Frank Sinatra. And you can see pictures of Liberace and his mother right up here. You'll notice that little dangling thing is gone that was up here, as well as the light fixture. But he had that put in there because it reminded him of musical notes. So you can find photos of him and his mother right here. And his mother, when he bought this, when he built it, his mother moved in with him. So Frances lived here as well as Lee. And apparently while he was living here, you know, he was always seen in public with various starlets, but it was always rumored that he was gay, and even until his death he denied that. Wasn't until after his death that it was kind of confirmed. But it was during this time that he felt pressure. People were always asking, who are you going to marry? When are you going to marry someone? And so he ended up starting to date a woman named Joanne Rio, and apparently she lived across the street from him. So this very well could have been her home right here. I looked it up, I couldn't find which home she lived in, but he started dating her here in 1953, and they would go out and be seen publicly. They would be photographed at different events, and they would always talk about, you know, Liberace finally finding love in all the magazines and everything. But what happened was, apparently, some stories that I found were that Joanne's father had the marriage called off because there were just too many accusations that Liberace was gay. Oh, and speaking of the airplanes, I guess they're tired of it too. But in reality, what it sounds like from what I was able to read, the real reason that the marriage was called off was because Liberace started getting a lot of unhappy fan mail from his female admirers saying that his fiance was too pretty and that you need to have a normal woman. You need to find somebody who is an everyday woman like us. And so that kind of gave Liberace an out, where he told Sydney, hey, look, you know, my fans don't want me to be with anyone. They don't want me to be with her, so can you call and break it up with her? Look at the railings right here. Notice the musical notes right there? It's kind of cool. So that's what happened. Sydney called Joanne Rio and told her that the wedding was over. Now, in 1956, while he was doing a tour of Europe, some people that didn't like him, some of the critics of the day didn't like him, and started writing articles basically calling him out, saying that he was feminine and neutered and he was not a man's man and that he was hiding being gay. Now, he sued them for libel and then ended up winning. And then when he came back here, the tabloid rag Confidential did the same thing. Now over that fence would be where the pool is, and the reason that he ended up stopping to live here, it actually happened in 1957 because of tabloid, or partially. What ended up happening was he sued the tabloid Confidential for the same reason, saying that it was libelous and that they were calling him homosexual, and in those days that could kill your career. So he sued them, and the day he testified, 1957, that night 2 men came and attacked his mother in this very garage. And also, one of the reasons that he decided to move was that he was so popular, he was constantly having fans trying to jump the fence and see the pool or just get a glimpse of him. So in 1957, he kept the property, but he decided to move out to Palm Springs, and he gave this property to his mother and his brother George. And George was always around from 53 to 57 while Liberace was living here, but apparently he complained quite a bit because there were always a lot of men hanging around, and George knew why. George wasn't stupid, even though Francis didn't know why. George knew why, and George didn't like it and said, "You're going to ruin your career. They're going to find out what's going on." And when Liberace testified on his own behalf in London, he lied and said, "No, I've never had any homosexual encounters. I've never been with a man or anything." And people say his true life, that all goes back to his teen years. He was having experiences even when he was a teen. So he moved away from here, and George was, like I said, was complaining about all the guests and men and everything that he was having here. So that was one of the reasons that Liberace moved to Palm Springs, was that he knew he could have more peace and not as many people spying on his activity. And of course, during his time here, he would have been opulent and excessive with all of his collections of artifacts, his furniture and everything. If you find pictures of this place online inside, it was pretty elaborate. And the piano-shaped pool, I'll show you a photo of what it looked like with him in there. They actually had the keys painted up on the cement, and the pool was a perfect shape of a piano. So the home stayed in the family until 1967, so he had it built in 1953, and then they sold it in 1967. And one of the stories that I was kind of shocked to learn about was, while Liberace and his mother were living here, even though he had tons of money, his mom was busted at the Ralph's grocery store a couple of times for shoplifting, and they called Liberace and said, "Hey, we don't want this to get into the press. Can you come and pick her up?" So a lot of history at this home. He would have lived here from 53 to 57, and then his mom and George would have lived here for the next 10 years. So I did read that this has changed in the last few years in one way, that there used to be a musical fountain out front with cherubs that he would always have going, and there would always be music playing and everything when people would come to visit. And he would come to visit after he moved to Palm Springs. He would come back and visit his mom and George here, but that's been removed. And he was not home that night that his mom was attacked. That was the night, or that was the same day he had testified in that Confidential tabloid trial. He was out performing at the Moulin Rouge. He wasn't here when she got attacked. So this is why I made a big deal about when we pulled off. I couldn't believe how close it was to the freeway. The house is right there, and the freeway is literally right there. Seems like that would have been a lot of noise. And now we have to take this rock star to the park. It's finally dried out a little bit. Finally got a day where it's not super windy also. It's been crazy lately. Hello. Alright my friends, we are going to call it a day. I hope you enjoyed this vlog. I want to thank Lynn Snow for becoming my newest Patreon. And in the following vlogs, we are going to have a lot of fun. I have some big surprises for you. Just wait and see. Have a great night, and goodbye.